Welcome to Bachelorette,
a podcast so educational it could be a university class.
With your hosts,
Danielle Dick McHugh,
Kim Hannah,
and Bill Henninger.
Welcome! So, Bill and I just entered the wildness that is the start of the 2022 fall semester, and we are smashed, not like in a good way smashed, like
No.
we're sober. We're like, we are mush.
We got stuff to do.
We do. We have stuff
a student, to do. So you'll notice my ensemble today, and I was like this in my first class, and midway through a student raised their hand and looked at me and said, "You look kind of like a disgruntled used car salesman," because I was like sweating so bad. I like had my tie, and I was like, the next thing. And I was like, I kind of feel like a disgruntled used car salesman some days.
Yeah, so we're holding on loosely, but we are all here for hometowns.
Yes.
And right now, 2 Bachelorettes is saving us. So go Bachelorette. So I've got a question for you.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
I really love this episode because like half of their hometowns were places that I've lived. And the episode actually begins in NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana. And I want to know, because we also like food and we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
What is your must-have food item from New Orleans?
So I've never been. No,
okay.
Yeah, it's on my list, but I've had like, Creole food places.
Yeah.
I really like etouffee. When I've had it, it's
Yeah.
I like spicy, I like carby, and I like shellfish. So
you would like all Southern Louisiana food then.
Yeah.
It's great for your happiness, terrible for your cholesterol.
Right. Yeah, that was my sense with etouffee.
Yeah, etouffees are wonderful. I mean, I am a fan of beignets. What I love about beignets is basically like Southerners make funnel cake and then they call them beignets, and you can have it with coffee at breakfast and nobody judges you.
Amazing.
So I do like beignets. I love any sort of shrimp, shrimp po' boys. I do like the etouffees. We like a good crawfish boil. Give us, make my lips burn.
So we always do a shrimp boil out in South Carolina. And so they insist it's different, but I love it.
There might be different seasonings.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I went to mainly crawfish boils in Louisiana. But every once in a while it'll be crawfish and shrimp. And then a lot of times you had like the red potatoes.
Yeah.
If it was a good boil, they get nice and spicy.
Yeah.
And then corn, kind of like a half of a corn cob.
And then they dump it out on newspaper, and you just see. I think crawfish are like the poor man's shrimp because there's so much more work to eat. It's like the rich, wealthy people are the ones that are like, I don't have time to break these crawfish apart.
I was trying to. Somebody told me I read a really funny thing about shrimp, that they were like the cockroaches of the sea or something like that.
I've heard that. Yeah, I think they're like bottom feeders, but that's fine because they're delicious bottom feeders. Yeah.
I ain't picky.
Yeah.
I will say, eating crawfish, it took me a long time before I would suck head, is what they call it.
Yeah.
And
not me. I got right in there.
You got right in there.
Oh yeah.
It some of the textures freak me out a little, but I'm still in.
Yeah.
A little bit of squirmishness isn't enough to stop me from eating good food.
Actually, Lark Brewing has a Korean crawfish something that I had the other night. Very spicy, but very good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
They come and make it at your table for you.
Oh, that's even more exciting. Yeah. So this season or this episode starts with Gabby and Jason in New Orleans. They do throw beads, and do New Orleans things. And then he introduces Gabby to his adorable and weepy father, which I loved him.
Oh yeah.
And then he meets more or then they go and they meet more of his family. So I think his mom and maybe two sisters, and they love Gabby. And then he's like, "Yeah, I don't know if I really see an engagement at the end of this." I thought there was this interesting theme that
Mhm.
like people whose families were like, "Go, we love this person." The person was like, "Meh," and people who were like, "I'm ready to propose," their family was like, "Mm-mm."
Yeah, exactly.
It was, yeah, it was interesting. Um, so there are a lot of memes that kind of came out from this part of the show. Some people were like, do you not know what show that you're on? Other people were like, well, yeah, duh. They've barely had a date. Of course, this is
Yes.
where he'd be at. Um, okay, so one of the things that I've been thinking about, I'm kind of like
Uh-huh.
skipping around here a little
It's
bit,
fine.
but um,
This is what my life is like now. Just let's do it. Let's
we'll
yeah.
just roll with it. We'll
Yep.
just roll with it. Bill is trained. Um, so I have read that they basically have gotten a lot less dates at this point because there's two bachelorettes than normal.
You must have seen the Bachelor data thing where she was talking about how basically they've had like one-on-one apiece. Like they've almost like less than like half the time they normally get.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was weird though is I don't feel like it's very common for them to have more than one-on-one with a contestant. That like sometimes it happens, but it's rare.
Yeah, I think probably the bigger thing is they've canceled so many like group
Of
dates. So they don't have that like one-on-one in the group date type thing.
hmm.
But really
Yeah, I'm following it.
they've had like three group dates. So it's like basically you hang out, you see someone and you're like, I kind of like them, and then they one date and then they're like, let's do it, let's get married.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's always been interesting to me about this show is that they don't seem to get to talk at other times. We're like, I
Right.
can imagine, well, because I did, getting married kind of quickly.
Hmm.
But like you'd think that in that time that you're kind of like courting each other or whatever, dating.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like such an old person courting. What kind of word is
According.
that? But like then like you'd be talking like nonstop and learning about each other. And I think it's like it's so sort of there's
Yes.
boundaries around because of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um anyway, his parents are like, you know, get engaged. You know?
Do it.
Um so
Yeah,
then
because wasn't the mom was kind of like, I just don't want you to miss out on this opportunity.
they
Yeah.
loved Gabby and they were
Yeah.
like, yeah, don't miss this up because you're scared.
Yep.
And it sort of makes me wonder too if they know something about him that like he maybe has
Yeah.
patterns or tendencies around that. Because she said something that kind of alluded to that.
Hmm.
So then we see Rachel and Zach in Anaheim.
Hmm.
Um, so I gotta say, all of this plane stuff, this is like so fascinating to me because like if somebody was like, hey Danielle, you're a professor, so I'm gonna like take you on a walk around campus for your date, I'd kind of be like, dude, I ain't on the clock. Like I don't want to be at work.
Yeah. Didn't they say though that they both like their dads would take them to watch planes or something? I think
Yeah.
that was what it was. Yeah.
Yes, and it was a sweet gesture, but I do like have
Yeah.
these moments where I'm
I
like,
thought the same thing. I was like, man, someone took me to the university. I was like, are you gonna make me like write a report or something today? I'm not about this.
it's like kind of this funny thing how we do this with some professions. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, you fly a plane. Like, okay, I know that this is just your fun time off, but you want to fly? Like, maybe not. Like, that's what they do all the time. I don't know. Anyway, I was saying it. I keep having dream works or work dreams this
Uh-huh.
week. And like one night, all night, I dreamt about like sending emails. And the next day, I couldn't remember whether I'd sent an email or not because I'd done it in my sleep. And I'm like, that's the worst.
That's a nightmare. That's not a dream.
Oh, I thought I'd been productive, but really I was sleeping. So, Zach's family is a little more reserved.
Right.
than Jason's family was about the Bachelorette process. And I thought that they asked some pretty pointed but smart questions. But then they sort of watched these videos of Zach and Rachel on all their like
That
dates and
was
they're like
weird.
making out. I'm like, totally weird. Can you be like, hi, I just like met your family. Here's like videos of us being intimate together. But I do think that that kind of helped the family understand the process a little bit more because
Oh,
they seemed cooler about things after they watched the making out.
that's true.
I don't know, maybe there is something there.
Yeah.
So then we have Gabby and Johnny in Palm Beach. I lived very close to Palm Beach as well. It kind of made me happy to see all these places that I'd lived in the show. I think Johnny's family is like very pretty. And
Yeah.
Gabby's like, oh yeah, Johnny's so hot. It's interesting to me because I don't find him that attractive.
Really.
I mean, he's fit,
Mm-hmm. But
but
they
like
all are.
he's kind of like villainy.
I go with that. Yeah. But some good chicks are into that, man. They like the villain.
Yeah, I don't
I feel like
know.
I'm living out
He,
my villain origin story right now at work. And so a couple weeks from now, Danielle's gonna be like, oh, whoa, did you get taller, Bill? I turned my
you are who you become. Oh, I'm so done. Like we shouldn't be talking in public right now.
I know.
Oh my goodness. So also they have a white couch and I realized, you know how sometimes they're like, what's the thing when you were a kid like made you think someone was rich and people be like,
Oh.
oh, they had a basketball hoop or like I don't know, they went to the Dells on vacation or like, these things that like
Hmm.
as adults,
Hmm.
you're kind of like, really? I realized watching this, I was like, oh dang, I think that people with white couches are rich. You know? I'm
Mine
like,
was a dishwasher. If you had
oh,
a
a
dishwasher, I was
dishwasher.
like, oh damn. Like
You got it
somebody
made.
got money here.
White couch.
Yeah.
That's how I think that you have it made if you have a white couch. Because I think you like it's risky, man.
Yeah.
You might
Oh
spill
yeah.
something and have to get a new couch.
We had one for a while and the pets were not kind to it.
No, it's tough stuff. You got to be able to wash it at
I don't
least.
think either you or I, Danielle, our families are white couch people.
I will never own a white couch. I will never look rich.
I
Um,
think Kim could own a white couch. She's pretty clean in particular. Yeah.
I feel like Kim could own a white
Hi,
couch.
Kim.
We'll have to run it by Kim.
Yeah.
Get her take on this.
Well,
So
she'll
they
hear this. We'll get a text at like 10:30 at night tonight and it'll be like, I so could have a white couch.
so they like Gabby. His family likes Gabby. So of course Johnny's like, I don't know about this. His dad again is like, no, go for it. It's so funny to me. And then Gabby and Johnny make out on a sunset cruise, and I was like, didn't you just like live on a cruise ship?
Oh yeah.
I
They
will
did.
say there are some good like little evening cruises. We went on a really good brunch cruise out of Palm
Ooh,
Beach when we lived there.
I
So
can see that. Yeah.
that's nice stuff. So next is Rachel and Tyler, perhaps the most controversial date. Maybe.
Yeah.
I
It
don't know.
was,
These next
oh
ones
no, I think
are
Tino was the most.
okay.
This one was just painful because it's
It was
like
so painful.
they kind of go and like they're kind of having a good and you can tell Rachel's just done and he's like so nice and she's trying to break up with him and he just keeps like and it was like oh buddy just yeah
It was tough. It was
it was
painful.
like from The Office like that level of like cringy like oh
So this is an interesting thing.
yeah
They never have even had a one-on-one,
that's what I read
which is really interesting that it's kind of surprising that she even decided to invite him to see her family. But maybe she thought that she'd get this time beforehand and it would, I mean, and it did
he's just
give her
been so
clarity.
nice the whole time you know
Yeah. Um,
you may
well,
set, we may set the
Tyler's
record We may set the record for the 2-minute recap with this one. This has been
Oh yeah, I'm not even trying. I'm like, we'll just have a discussion about it.
I
So
love it.
Tyler is so. I feel like Tyler would have fallen like he fell for Rachel with anybody.
Yeah.
He's so hyped. He's also super playful, like in
Yeah.
Red, and it's not that Rachel is not playful, but she's there's a seriousness to her that he just didn't have quite the same way. He felt, you know, more youthful. So then like he's like, I'm in love with you, and she's like, I don't want you to meet my family.
Yeah, it was ouch.
You know, I gotta give her some credit because I do think that she reacted and was clear and upfront, I think, in her initial response to him.
Yep.
And he just wanted to kind of keep complimenting her. And he
Yeah.
was so kind about it, which I think just made it harder.
Yeah, I thought I feel like that's worked for him in the past. To just be like, kind of ignore it and tell people nice things, but it's like in the end that never works out, right? Like
No.
it just prolongs the dumping a couple weeks.
Oh man, and then he has to go and tell his family on camera that he was
I
just
felt like that was a little bit rough on the producers.
Oh yeah, I was like the producers are working hard, man. Oh. So after that, we kind of feel like, well, we need something happy. So what do? They send Gabby and Eric off to visit his terminally ill father.
Yeah.
I actually appreciated watching this part a lot, though. You could sort of see. I thought that the way that Gabby handled things, one, you could see that her experience as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You could really tell that she was used to navigating
Mm-hmm.
families with someone
Yeah.
that is ill. And I thought that it was kind of good to like watch that happen. And then Eric tells Gabby that he's falling in love with her. I was so happy that Gabby finally got a love declaration because I felt like what was happening was like all these dates with like Rachel where they're like, I'm falling in love with you, I'm falling in love with you, and Gabby's people are just like, I'm not ready for a proposal, I'm not ready for a proposal. After great dates.
Yeah, I feel like Gabby picked people, and Gabby's personality is such that like the people she picked are just the way she gels with people. They're people who are going to be slower to warm up and make a commitment. So
I think so too. And I think Gabby feels a little like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? So, you know, confession, Eric's name is spelled stupid and so is his hair, but I think I'm finding him more and more attractive. So, you know, whatever, hate me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't see that coming. Anyway, maybe it's just because it's the only relationship that doesn't seem like a disaster for Gabby,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Either way, I think I'm becoming an Eric fan.
Mm-hmm.
So the final hometown is Rachel and Tino, and we really feel you kind of go into this and they just feel like they're such a strong couple. They've had this connection. Tino is kind of a
jerk.
He was a real jerk on the episode, but like you still feel like it's there for them.
Well, you can see where he gets his jerkiness from.
His family was really unimpressive.
It's one thing to question people. It's another thing to like, that dad was just, he would not let it drop. And it's like, you know, you ask Rachel a question and she answers and it's like, he's just going to keep coming and coming. And at some point it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, she giving you your answer, like, you make your decision now.
Yeah, this is a thing I want to talk about with you a little bit more later, but like, yeah, the family's not on board. Yikes. Right. Rachel is clearly upset. I love the moment where he's like, "Oh, my family loved you," and she's like, "No, they did not."
I kind of feel like they hated me.
Yes, and here's the thing: is you can tell that this is going to create a rift and something that they have to sort of either work around or won't.
Yeah.
But I also appreciated in that moment that Rachel feels comfortable enough with Tino when he says that she called him on it.
Or she has enough of a, go ahead.
Yeah, that I think that's a great sign.
Yeah, she has enough of a sense of self to say like, no, don't tell me what happened, don't snowball me on this.
Absolutely. Snapping.
I got a student
All right.
today in my 8 a.m. class that snapped something I said I don't remember, but I was like, "Are you raising your hand?" She's like, "No, I was snapping." I was like, "Okay,
That's
okay."
some slam poetry,
Damn,
cultural
man.
tradition right then.
Yeah, you
There.
know how much I love poetry.
I do. Bringing some poetry to class. All right. So I want to talk about a few things. You know, do you think that you would be uh whatever decision you make, I'm going to support it kind of parent? Or if your kid went on to a show like this, would you be like, this show is weird and it's not going to be healthy and you need to protect yourself, parent?
What type of parent do you think I would be?
What do I think you'd
I
be?
would be, yeah.
I think that you probably lean towards the support whatever decision you make, but I think that you would also educate them on whether or not this is a healthy way to
Yeah,
enter into a relationship.
I think I would ask a lot of questions and I would remind them that you do not have to propose. You can totally say like, we're happy, legally they cannot make you propose to somebody. There's just no way they can do it. So, I think you would be a whatever goes.
Probably, though I think
Yeah, you do
I
the
would
education.
probably
Yeah.
I think I would sort of be like, let's talk about
Hmm.
how maybe the framing of the show has affected your experiences or pressures that you feel. But
Hmm.
like ultimately, as long as you are reflective about that, I will support whatever decision that you make.
But you would have them
Um,
do it while sculpting.
absolutely. I would have them sculpt with their bodies.
I would
The
probably have a
future of
PowerPoint.
the relationship at PowerPoint.
Sit down, folks.
So kind of going back to Tino's family, one of the things that I was thinking about and I think would be hard
Hmm.
is so we've both been married to our partners for a decade and a half, you
Yeah.
know? And it would be so I think, it would be hard because you can't expect your 25-year-old or 30-year-old
Hmm.
to answer questions about marriage when they haven't been married for 17
Right.
years. And
Right.
so it's sort of like I was thinking that, oh, they answered those questions as well as you could kind of expect
Hmm.
somebody where they are answering them. And they're kind of hard questions to
Yeah.
answer well, right? Like,
Yeah. I think as a parent, you probably just got to say, like, ask the questions and saying, you don't got to answer it right now, but you should probably have a decent answer by the time you decide if you're going to propose or not. But there is a concept in dating relationship called the Romeo and Juliet effect. And that is where when your parents tell you no, you find somebody more attractive. Um,
ooh,
which doesn't have great outcomes, right? Like if you marry somebody because your parents doesn't like them, that's probably not a good sign.
yeah, that probably should be. I love the name of that theory.
Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was just sort of thinking about that because I was like, I wonder how I answered some of the questions that my parents asked me. I was pretty young. I was 23 when I got
Mm,
married. And, I think I answered them pretty well for a 23-year-old. But
yeah,
how I would answer those same questions 17 years into marriage is very different. And like, it would be hard as a parent to sort of adjust and go, they get to answer it where they're at,
right.
you
Yeah, I
know?
didn't have to answer any questions. It was like a shotgun wedding, but there was no pregnancy. My mom just wanted me to marry Elaine so bad. And she was like, do it now.
That's
So,
awesome.
yep.
Well, and I think that
The most tepid
you
response I got was when I called her stepdad, and he said, well, either way. It's like, oh, okay.
either way, one thing that I do like about what you were just saying too is that like in some ways the asking of the questions isn't really about the answers, but encouraging them to self-reflect.
Like thought process. Yeah.
Right. It's about
Yeah.
helping them work through a process more than it is about the
Right.
specific answers that you get in that moment.
which is something 22, 23-year-olds are not good at, right?
Yeah,
Like thoughtful, like thinking through. And you
absolutely.
get better with it at age, right? You understand what things you have to think fast about and what things you have to think slow about.
Yeah, and I also think um some people have practices that maybe help them develop. I think it's a skill to engage in self-reflection and self-awareness, and I
Hmm.
think some people integrate that into things that they do in their life that can develop that much better than others. And I think
Oh,
some
yeah,
people are intuitively, you know, I do think some of it's intuitive, but I for some people, but I do
right.
think it's a practice and a skill that one can develop.
Yep.
Um, so my second thing is, what do you say to someone when someone says "I love you" and it's just not there? Is there, Bill? Is there
I don't, it probably,
graceful ways?
yeah, it probably depends on where you want the relationship to go. Because if you know you're not going to be in love with them, I'm just of the mind it doesn't like, it makes no sense to be like, fluff it up and string them along, right? But if you think you might get there, I think it's a-okay to say, you know what, that means a lot to me. And I think I'm getting there, but I'm not there just yet.
Yeah.
You
Well, and
probably
that's
learn a you can probably learn a lot about the person by how they react to that statement too, right? Like if they respect you and your boundaries, they'll say, okay, I get that, and let you kind of come to the decision.
well, and that you can be hurt by not.
Right.
I understand that you could feel hurt or
Yeah.
rejected and not sort of having that reciprocated, and it's okay to feel that hurt,
Right.
but to also recognize that that hurt right now isn't necessarily a rejection.
Right. It's
And
not,
I
there's
think,
no ill will intended by it, or yeah.
yeah, that someone might still want to have the relationship. They might be
Right.
able to get there, but they might just be in a different. And I think that's one of the things about the
Yeah.
show is it moves on its
Yeah.
pace, and either you keep up or you don't.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that before. Like, given normal situations, right? If you like somebody, but you're not there yet, you could slow play it. Maybe you move in together and then you're like, I really like them. Elaine's actually got really good advice for her friends that she tells a lot of times. And that's like, you don't really got to know if you love the person. You just got to know if you want to see them again. And then you just keep seeing them. And eventually you're going to be like, I don't really care if I see them anymore. Or you're going to be like, I can't think about not seeing them. And then that's probably the time you think about, getting married. It's like, that's a lot more simpler.
Right, yeah. It's
Yeah.
more like I love the advice like um do the next right thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like that with
Right.
relationships. It's like, well, what's the
Yeah.
next right thing for us? Not
Yeah.
what's the I don't need to know
Yeah.
the end. I just need to know the next right thing
Yeah.
for it.
Well, and I think
Uh,
I've talked about this too, is I don't think love is a destination, It's like they talk about I'm in love with you, and it's like love is not a static thing. I have two thoughts in my head. One is love is not a static thing. It fluctuates, right? How much you care, how not how much you care, but how much you want to be around someone and how much they kind of gate capture your imagination. But also, I don't think love's a thing, it's an action, right? Like what shows somebody you love them is the things you do for them, not by saying I love you. Love's not a word, it's an action. It's like the little things you do or the big things you do. And so,
as a performance person, I just spent this week. I'm very behavioralist, right?
mhm,
So uh we've been talking about identity is
mhm,
what you do. It's you can think that you're a certain
yep,
way, but like it's your actions every day that make you who you are.
yep,
And so I kind of love the idea of love
right,
uh being um it's a practice, it's a thing that you do that like in some ways you don't fall into love, you act
right.
into love.
Yeah,
um
yeah,
it is a kind
yeah.
of cool thing. um so Okay, did you see the preview?
Yeah, I think they're giving us the old duck. I think Gabby's gonna be there. And when like when Rachel's like, no, Gabby, I don't know. I don't know. I think they're trying to hoodwink us.
I ju- I think that if that is really what happens, they wouldn't have given it away right now.
No, yeah. Yeah,
That being said,
I
it's hard for me to imagine I can imagine Rachel ending an engagement with a couple of the guys. I have a hard time imagining Gabby, unless maybe it's Eric, ending this in an engagement.
I think Gabby just picked somebody because they showed Eric saying, I can't, I think it was Eric that said, I just can't think about the woman I'm in love with being with somebody else. I wonder if they go Claire and what's his name? Um,
Ooh.
but the question is, have they spent more time together than Claire and what's his name? Right?
Oh,
Who's
that's a
had more
good.
time together? Yeah. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, they're probably at that point where if you wanted to be like, I'm done, like it's probably the right move, right? You don't want to hurt anyone. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're like 3 drinks in, you want to be with Eric, but now it's like, oh, this guy's got his shirt off, like, and make some mistake that could negatively impact your relationship when you're just not into it. So
Yeah, I hadn't thought of the possibility of maybe Gabby isn't there at the end, but it's because she clears it.
she clears it up. It's now a verb.
Clears it up.
Cleared the shit out of that.
That's interesting. I feel like I had a thought that I lost, but if it comes back, I'll
Yell
bring it
it
up.
mid-sentence
Yeah.
while I'm talking.
So do you have a wild card
I
for
do
us?
have a
We're
wild
on
card,
a bit.
and this is all around what the parents kept saying, which is what is the appropriate amount of time to wait until getting engaged, right? And so I don't have a hard and fast answer. There is no hard and fast answer, and I looked through the research very quickly to see is there like a sweet spot where people who are engaged this long tend to stay married longer, and there's not a lot. So basically what that means is that you can meet someone and get engaged after 2 weeks. You can meet somebody and be with them for 10 years and then get engaged and be married. The average length of an engagement in the US is between 2 to 3 years.
Is that between the dating and engagement or
Yep.
between, okay.
Yep. So it's when you define yourself as a committed couple to when you get engaged. And so that's why it's like 2 to 3 years, because that's so squishy about, are we really a couple? Or are we not? Engagements usually last 12 to 18 months. That's the average. So about 5-ish years total from meeting to marriage is the average in the US. So what are your thoughts? What's the sweet spot?
We did it in about 5 weeks.
Okay.
Everything.
And you guys have been married for
17 years.
17 years.
I will say that's nuts.
Yeah.
I think even now, I think it's, at the time, I think we were like, oh, like we know what we're doing.
Uh-huh.
And everybody around us was like, I think you might be messing up your life, right?
Yeah.
People were freaked out in
Mhm.
in our life, and most people were like nice about it. They didn't.
Mhm.
Some people did tell us, but most people were like, I will support you, but you knew they were talking behind your back, right?
They're like taking bets at the
I
wedding.
didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
but like now like looking back on it, I was like, oh my gosh, like what were we doing? And it has, I mean, I think it worked out, and I do think that there are some things that sort of prepared both of us to be able to do that and have
Right.
it successful.
Well, and you all didn't have kids right away, and I think that is especially if you've only known each other for a short time, and then you jump into having kids, and like,
Be hard.
I think what helps marriages is when you remove you limit the stressors on people until they get to the point where you're not working on your marriage daily, so that you can undertake those other stressors.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting about this show is like it's not like they're getting married at the end of the show.
Right.
They're getting engaged. And while I understand that for some people, like it's really important that they only get engaged once, or
Mhm.
I can see how just the act of engagement could make a future breakup
Mhm.
even more maybe painful or
Mhm.
difficult to navigate. Um, at the same time, I do think that if there's some space between the engagement and the marriage, you do have time to sort of work through things or not.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an interesting.
I agree. I think it's weird when people say I only want to get engaged one time. And I'm like, well, then what's the point of like engagement and then married? Just only get married one time. Like,
Right.
like I guess I always thought of engagement as it's like it's your chance that you start really like making efforts towards putting your lives together. And if you find something that's like this just doesn't work, this is when you get out of it without having to like have extensive legal help, right?
Right.
You can get out of an
Right.
engagement with, just separating your stuff. Once you're married, it becomes really legally an issue. And then if you're religious, whatever
Yeah.
your religion says about it, you have to deal with those things. Can you tell I was teaching today? I have very teaching, like, and you got these things, and yeah, so you haven't yet told me I look like a disgruntled salesman, though.
No, no, I haven't. I was just thinking it, but no. Just
Well,
joking.
I walked in the heat and I was drinking coffee, so I was really sweaty, like pitting out, and then my tie, and I was like gesticulating, and I may have been smoking a cigarette too while I was speaking.
So I
Yeah.
remember what I was going to say earlier
Ooh, yeah.
is one thing that's a little bit surprising to me is that if things don't work out
Hmm.
at the end of the show, it is not that common that you see the lead redate past contestants.
Right.
Now, Katie just did,
Uh-huh.
right? And they just broke up.
And I would say that was a successful relationship. They were together for a while, and
They
yeah,
were.
yeah.
And I will say one thing that I think was different too is that he got eliminated really early
Right.
on. And I
Hmm.
wonder if that makes it easier. But it is kind of surprising to me in some ways that you don't see that happen where it's like somebody, well, we really did like each other, but like we just weren't on the same page because we didn't have the time for things to grow
Right.
together. But it sort of seems like they're like, nope, you didn't choose me, like I'm done with it. And it seems like it's a pretty clean break most of the time. I kind of do think that that's kind of fascinating.
Didn't it happen with so Jason Mesnick, obviously it
Huh?
happened with, and then didn't Hannah go back and date Tyler? So they were like, yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it happens more than you hear about,
Mm-hmm.
and then they realize that you also are not a good pick.
Well, because it kind of would make sense. Like
Yeah.
you kind of have this formatted thing. There's like
Mhm.
a part of you that probably is like, yeah, it sucks that you didn't, you're hurt from
Yeah.
that rejection, especially it was on national TV.
Hmm.
But like you also sort of think maybe it was just the confines of the show that made a relationship not work, not really how we felt about each other, our compatibility or something.
Right.
So I don't know. I just think that that's interesting.
Well, and to like apply it to real life, it's not uncommon for you to maybe like go on a date with someone, but then you start dating somebody else and it's like you kind of I'm not dating anyone, and so in your mind you're like, well, I probably would have been interested in dating this person if I hadn't met this other person, or you have this person in your group of friends, but you've been with somebody and you've always thought like I probably could date him if I was single. And so then it's like you wait and then you're single, but then they're dating someone, and then one of you gets married and then it takes it off the table. It's like I wonder if that happens sometimes with the
Oh
Bachelor.
yeah.
They reach out and they're like, actually, I'm seeing somebody, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, that would make a lot of sense.
yeah.
I was something I was thinking about. So what did you learn this episode?
Ooh, I learned that man, I don't know. Can you go first and I'll think?
Yeah, I learned something from you. I really like the idea of thinking about love as an action because I will say in performance studies, we don't do there's not a lot of research around emotions to think
Hmm.
about emotions as performative, emotion as like an action. And so like I think that's really interesting to me. And something that I mean, you say it, I'm like, well, yeah. But I'm kind of thinking about it from my own theoretical standpoint, and it's kind of sparking some fun stuff.
There's something happening.
There's
Uh,
some
I really appreciated your comments about Gabby and handling families and an ICU nurse. I mean, as I was watching it, it's like, oh yeah, she should have. But now that I'm thinking back, it's like, yeah, she is really skilled, and it's cool to
yeah.
see her because she's kind of got this goofy persona, and but to see her, you can see like she's a professional, and she, you don't get to be an ICU nurse. You don't trip into that. They don't stick people into the ICU that aren't skilled and very good at it. And so Yeah.
I think that Gabby is very emotionally intelligent,
Yeah.
and in a way that I don't know that I think she's gotten credit for.
Mhm.
I felt like that when we watched her handle Clayton.
Yes.
I thought that she handled, like, she was so articulate in expressing her emotions and kind of holding boundaries.
Juxtaposed to how Rachel Nicole handled it.
Yes.
You know.
And you haven't seen as much of that this episode or this season, because she is kind of this really fun. I think that she is like fun and goofy, but like she knows how to be serious when it matters and is kind of good at that too.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we did it.
I got our shout out.
You do? Give us a shout out, Bill.
Tinton Falls, New Jersey. So Tinton Falls, New Jersey. We had a listener from there. They are in New Jersey somewhere. No one cares because no one cares that much about New Jersey. They have a population of 17,892. They are a square mile of 15.6 square miles. They are, let's see here, 82% white, 99.3% African American or Black, 0.13 Native American, 4.67 Asian, and the economy. Jersey Shore Premium Outlets is an outdoor shopping mall there, and it has a lot of people. Finally, famous people from there. Let me find Sean Goldman, who was the boy in the center of the international custody dispute between his American father and Brazilian mom in the early or the mid 2000s.
What a claim to fame.
What a claim to fame. That was the only
Thanks
thing
for listening, New Jersey.
Thanks, Triton, New Jersey, Titan. So, all right, we did it.
We'll do it.
Do you have to go to a meeting now?
No, thank goodness. I think I'm done for today.
Take me with you. Take me with you.
I have to go home and mow my yard and maybe go to the doctor because I might have staph infection.
All right, everybody. Hopefully you are.
This is. I thought you were cutting this off.
No, I'm not cutting us off. No, I was saying you got to go. You got to go down.
Oh, we got to go.
I feel bad for you, like staph infection.
Well, it's just in my 80% of people have staph in their nose at any given time. It's just probably dormant.
Oh my God, that was a fact.
I
think we should leave people with that.
I don't even know if that's. I might fact check me on that one, but I had a doctor tell me that once, and I remember it now.
As you're picking your nose in your car, know that there's staph up there.
There's staph up there.
Bye.
You have been listening to Bachelorette
with your hosts, Danielle Dick McGee,
Kim Hanna,
and Bill Hennig.
All thoughts and opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the person who spoke them.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to the show, leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Also, please share with your family, friends, colleagues, and other ardent Bachelor fans.
If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at bachelorette@gmail.com.
Or on the Twitter with the handle @Bachelorette.
Thanks for listening.